Good afternoon. At this time, I will call the York County Council September 5th, 2023 County Council meeting to order. I welcome everyone who came out here tonight to be a part of our meeting. At this time, I'll recognize the Honorable Tom Audette from District 1, who will lead us in invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we come here today asking for your guidance and wisdom and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to encourage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the community. As we pray for our kids going back to school and safe travels, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time on our agenda, we recognize folks who are being sworn into office on various boards and commissions. If I call your name, if you will please come forward and stand behind the podium. Our attorney will meet you in the, Mr. Kendry will meet you in the middle of the atrium and swear you in. Scott Kendrick and Ira Coltharp for the Flint Hill Fire Tax District Board, and Margaret Parson Williams for the Culture and Heritage Commission. And as you approach, I do want to say on behalf of the council, thank you very much for the service that you do for the citizens in the county. We can't conduct business without you folks agreeing to volunteer, and we appreciate the work that you do.
I stood here before council many times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A privilege of mine and an honor to administer the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat. I do solemnly swear.
I solemnly swear.
I am duly qualified.
That I am duly qualified.
According to the Constitution of this state.
According to the Constitution of this state.
To exercise the duties of the office.
To exercise the duties of the office.
Which I have been appointed.
Which I have been appointed.
And that I will.
And I will.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Discharge the duties thereof.
Discharge the duties thereof.
And preserve, protect, and defend.
And preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of this state.
The Constitution of this state.
Of the United States.
And of the United States. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we move now to our appearances. We have Kevin Madden, our Assistant County Manager, to provide information regarding OPEB and retiree insurance benefits.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to give an overview of the OPEB liability the county has and how staff has been implementing the last ordinance changes in 2014. First, let me start by explaining what OPEB is all about. It's other post-employee benefits. This is specifically the subsidy that County Council provides retirees after they retire that meet the criteria laid out in the ordinance passed in 2014. This was required by GASB. GASB is the Government Accounting Standards Board. They passed GASB 45. I think it was required to be implemented in 2009. This was to force governments to record this liability on their books. In the past, governments weren't recording it, and you had a lot of governments on the West Coast, Illinois or whatnot, that were going bankrupt when they started having to pay these bills on a pay-as-you-go basis and didn't realize what they'd bitten off and couldn't swallow it. York County has made a couple changes to the plan, the most recent one being in 2014. Staff has gone through that ordinance, and the county has complied with that ordinance every year since that change was made. Every year during audit, we have an independent actuarial review that calculation and come up with that liability. That is what drives the cost that the retirees pay. The actuarial's report is reviewed by our external auditor every year during the external audit to make sure that's in line. Okay. PEBA sets the rates for the health insurance. There's a $3 a month fee that is charged to the retirees from PEBA. That's the same fee that they charge everybody. We understand that there's been some concerns about communication, and I'm not going to tell you staff has done a great job in communicating the changes from the retirement to the retirees. So we are trying our best to go overboard with that. There's a letter sent out in July where we gave a preview what the rate increase would be. I've asked staff to set up additional meetings this month in September. We're going to have 4 meetings in September, 2 for the pre-65 retirees as well as 2 for the pre-65 employees that are eligible for the plan and still working. Ms. Davison put forth a lot of effort in 2014 and 15 to try to inform everybody, but sometimes until you have to write the check, you're not always on top of stuff at the time, or didn't care to pay attention as much as maybe in hindsight we should have done with that. But we're going to, as a staff, try to over-communicate what's going on with this plan and make sure they understand the cost and why the cost is what it is. But again, I want to circle back to the ordinance that y'all all have in your package. You'll have a copy of the ordinance. You have a copy of the most recent audited financial statements note disclosure on that. You have a copy of the chart that goes back to the year the last change was made, showing the expenses by year going forward on that. And you also have a copy of the invitations that were emailed out today to the retirees and eligible employees that are still working right now as well. So with that said, any questions?
Mr. Roddy?
I just want to, I guess, part of a question, part of a statement. I know back in 2014, and I think I'm the only one up here that was here in 2014, we made a tough call with our insurance of how we was going to do it, how to cap it, and not to even offer it to new employees. I'm talking of retirement insurance, not to offer retirement insurance to some new employees after 2014. We saw back then that insurance was obviously a rising cost every single year. We've hit some plateaus where it kind of flatlined. And I still work, I have insurance on my job as well. And looking at some of the plans that's still being offered in the marketplace to current employees and retirement employees, retirees, I know what we have in place for our current retirees is a pretty good plan. And once you hit that 65 mark and you're able to get insurance, whether it's Medicare or other places, most jobs don't even cover that, because I know my job is not going to cover my insurance once I hit 65. I have to get Medicare. And to see, and I know people are concerned with the rise in health costs, and we had to make the call to try to limit our liability even in 2014. And I think it was the right thing to do, because these, what we offer our retirees is a pretty good plan. And I wanted to go on record and have management say or staff say, you know, what other counties offer similar insurance plans to their retirees pre-65, post-65? What's kind of the going thing in the marketplace for counties?
I can speak to as of what other counties are offering current employees. I don't think there's any county or municipality that's offering this plan to any current employees. I can't really speak intelligently to others that might have been grandfathered in. A while back, I looked at, let's say, Greenville County and City of Spartanburg, I think in Spartanburg County, and they had OPEB liabilities as well, but I can't go into the details of the plans. I can say, you know, we have a very generous plan that council provided for the retirees. You know, you mentioned yours is at 65. Michael Moore, who served 30 years in the Navy, his ends at 65 as well. So it is a very generous plan. You know, and I think the decision made in 2014, I was the county's external auditor, I think, at that point in time, and that was due again to the, as you pointed out, to the rising liability associated with that plan, and it's just not something the county could afford to continue to offer to future employees at that point in time.
Off the top of your head, what's our overall liability right now with OPEB for providing?
The net
insurance?
OPEB liability is a little less than $30 million.
Any other questions? I'll just say to Mr. Madden, did you have something?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, I'll try to be quick. So in 2000, if you'll correct me as I summarize, in 2015, council set an amount of $675 a month that the county would commit to in paying for employee coverage, pre-65. Then they also contribute to the spouse and the children. And at that point in time, the premium in 2015 was $663, which was less than the $665. It wasn't until 2016 that the premium that was billed actually began to exceed the set amount of $675 that the council of 2014 decided upon. So from 2015 through this year, the set amount was $675 for the employee. So in 2016, there was a slight increase to $686. So those of you that are pre-65 retirees, you started picking up a little bit of premium at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. 2017, it went up to $690, where the county was still paying $675 for the employee only. 2018, it went to $708.96. And then in 2019, there was no change in premium from 2019. It stayed at $750.57 all the way through 2022. So we went 4 years without an increase, and then in 2023, for employee only now is all I'm referring to, went up to $840.64, and then it is projected to go up to $862 in 2024, with the county still contributing $675 a month. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Audette?
Kevin, what is the timeline that you're expecting on this one here as far as, I know you mentioned the
This
number
is just
of
providing information to council. We'll have the meetings with the retirees this September. You know, I can certainly field any questions that council might want to have to call about. I think next year, the committee, yourself and Mr. Huckabee and Bumper on, planned on meeting again if there was, we're doing an RFP on insurance benefits, and if there's a change away from PIBA, there might be some other options available, but that's all tentative stuff right now. So that's the only real timeline that's out there, is to see what happens with an RFP, and I can't tell you how that would,
You're not sure of the timeline
how that's going
on
to come
that?
out.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Add to what you asked real quickly. So our committee, we agreed to, because of what happened last year, you all got a communication at the last minute, after the fact, of your increase, and management's apologized for that. But what our committee said to management was, let's try to avoid that next year by sending a notice out in July and give some indication of what the renewal increase could be. And that's why you got a notice in July. Then we asked for another notice to go out in September, and then the final notice would go out in November, which would have the definitive amount in it. So that was the action taken by our committee on improving communication. And then they've taken an additional step with Lisa Davidson's guidance, and that is to actually go ahead and have meetings so that they can explain and answer questions.
And I will say right now, it looks like we've got the numbers from our actuarial. Garth, you tell me if it's incorrect, where we'll be able to provide the actual numbers at the meetings in September this year. We've tried to be very proactive and push the actuarial to get those numbers sooner than possible. That's correct, Garth?
Great, thank you.
We obviously have to protect the taxpayers and at the same time honor the responsibilities and the obligations that we made to the retirees. I'm very thankful that management is going to set these meetings, as I understand it, in September with the retirees, where they can ask all the questions they want to ask. They will be provided all of the information that council was just provided with tonight, including a copy of the ordinance that details what happened then and the history since that point in time, so that if they have questions about that, they can raise that in those meetings that will be had. Are the dates actually set yet? Mr. Madden, can you just let us know what those are?
September 20th and September 27th. We have morning and afternoon meetings both those days, so 4 meetings in total, 2 on the 20th, 2 on the 27th. We set 2 different meetings in case one day doesn't work. Hopefully the other day will work.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all moving forward and educating and beginning that dialogue. We move now to our public forum session. This is an opportunity where council has the ability to listen to what folks who want to sign up and speak on any item that's within our jurisdiction. They're welcome to come speak. It looks like we have a very light meeting tonight. A couple of things just from looking at who signed up. There is, if anyone is specifically on the agenda and signed up to be on the agenda, then the appropriate time for you to speak would be when we have the citizen concerns, which is closer to the end of the agenda. But you signed up for the 2 minutes as well, so when I call your name, if you want 2 minutes and the other, you certainly can, but I think you intended to be at the end. Additionally, we have a number of public hearings tonight, which means that if you are here to give some feedback to council on a public hearing item, you're not limited when we call to the public hearing item. So if the rezoning matter that you're here about, you don't want to be limited to 2 minutes, then I would suggest you wait until the public hearing for that item comes up, and you can speak to your heart's content, and we'll listen to you. The one thing we do ask is that if you'll pay attention to the screen when I call your name, if you'll give your name and address, and if you'll pay attention to the screen when it starts going to yellow and red, that means your 2 minutes is up, and that's when I have to cut people off, which I hate doing. First individual who signed up is Scott Kushner. Kushner.
We get that all the time. Hey, everybody, Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street.
Yeah, I messed that one up.
Kokenauer, yeah. In the beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood of Fort Mill, South Carolina, resident of 31 years now. If you're ever at the pit, I'm the announcer of football games on Friday night for Catawba Ridge. I did 9 years of football and basketball at Nation Ford High School, and previous to that, I spotted at Fort Mill High School, and Bailey Jackson even let me announce a game over there for him one time. So I enjoy volunteering for our school district, and I've also for 20 plus years sat on, for the town of Fort Mill, their planning, zoning, or historic review, which I'm on today. So a little bit of background on that. A little bit of background on myself. Indian Land 83, Winthrop 89. Very fortunate to have Dale Dove for business law, Bob Brakefield, CPA Law 1 and 2. Intimate domain, condemnation on property in York County. This one has frustrated me to the very end. The timing from the right-of-way purchaser, did not return phone calls, did not return emails. Finally, we got to the point where we were just negotiating back and forth numbers. So I got to 125, the county 10-dayed me at 80. I got to 115. Almost 4 months went by before the county served papers on my wife, not on me, which is fine. I was expecting to be served the 30-day notice. Made a couple phone calls, didn't hear anything back. Met with the contractors on site, scheduled a meeting with the engineering department. Made a phone call to my attorney, which cost me money. Sent emails out. The next morning, my wife sent an email out saying that we would speed this up and everything, so they go ahead and start construction. During this process, we got 30-day notice, and I feel like I was shorted some money, plus extremely wasted my time on the whole process and everything. Real quick, Kevin and Mike, at the very end, they stepped in, saved the county about $40,000. That was that email for a little service road that was not needed.
Thank you,
So big heads up, and thank y'all for doing that. And the contractors on the job have been awesome. So the guys doing the work are real, real good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Next is Sharonda Love.
Gotta get my water.
I believe, Ms. Love, I think you're on the agenda. Would you like to wait
Yes.
until then? Okay.
Yes.
That way we won't be cutting you off midstream. It looks like, I know I'm going to butcher this. Admin Jazari?
Yeah, we have a hearing.
The public hearing? You'll wait for that? Okay. Well, that concludes our public hearing. All individuals who signed up, I've called their names out. Do we have a motion on our consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Consent agenda.
Item number 8
Item number 8,
for discussion with management.
okay, an amendment to an RFQ. That'll go as item number 6 in new business. Anyone else have anything to remove? All right, we have a motion for consent with that amendment. Can we get an amendment to that motion, just to be clear?
I'd like to have a motion for amendment, but I'd like to add the amendment of removing item 8 from the consent and putting it in new business.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to page number 11 on our council agenda, which is the beginning of our public hearings. First item, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 23-30, tax map number 57606010008, to rezone from UD to GC 19.58 acres in District 2. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this request for rezoning is on Charlotte Highway, just past the Buster Boyd Bridge. The applicant is seeking to rezone from UD to GC. So it's an existing shopping center, and the applicant is proposing to locate a veterinary office inside the existing structure. That use is not allowed in the current UD district. So in order to allow that tenant, they have to rezone to the GC district. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning request. It's somewhat consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. The preferred zoning district for the village center future land use would be a mixed use designation, but this is an existing construction, and the GC district uses would align with the village center. There's no new construction here. It does not preclude a future mixed-use walkable village center in the area, and it would also remove the parcel from the legacy UD district. And by an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission likewise recommends approval.
Does anybody have any questions for staff before we open it up for public hearing? Hearing none, is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? If you just come forward and give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Black. I'm at 7010 and 7020 Brookview Drive. So it's kind of adjacent to some of this property. I think there was a little bit of miscommunication on the stuff that came out because I think everybody was thinking it was the backland that is all wooded behind there. So I don't really have an issue with this. What is the plans for the property directly behind this?
I'm not aware of plans for the property directly behind this, and not the subject of this rezoning.
Okay, so this has nothing to do, this is all the existing structure
Correct.
that's out there?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this rezoning? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Roddy?
Jonathan, I think what may help the gentleman out, what is the zoning behind this piece of property currently at? And that will give kind of an idea of what could come there in the future.
Yep, so the map that's there on the left, that has that gray color, that's the UD district. It's a legacy district. It allows a lot of different types of uses, but it's not quite as permissive as GC is. So depending on what the property owner might want to do in the future, they might also come back before this council for rezoning, but they do have a large suite of by right options as well.
Can you give a few of those by rights? in there?
There are several hundred uses
Oh.
that are by right,
Well,
so I don't want to shortchange by mentioning just a few. But generally, uses that are commercial or industrial in nature, there's no residential uses that are allowed in UD.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to public hearing, item number 2, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 23-31, tax map number 72100000055 to rezone from UD to GC, 2.56 acres in District 7.
Yes, as you can see here, this parcel is on US 21, just south of Spring Hill Farm Road. It's just about 2.5 acres. Similar request to go from UD to GC here. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the site. There's an existing fireworks business there. They're proposing to redevelop the site with fast food restaurants. You can see they're proposing 2 here. Drive-throughs are not permitted in UD, so they have to request a rezoning in order to do that. Here's their proposed plan and context with the immediate area. I've added a couple of stars here. There's some other existing fast food locations in the area, so you can see it's quite compatible. Staff recommends approval. It's consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. The area is commercial in nature. There is a GC parcel located directly across Highway 21 already, and it would also remove another parcel from that legacy UD district. By an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission likewise recommends approval.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to item 3, public hearing, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading. Case number 23-32, tax map number 38500000029, to rezone from AGC to RUD, 1 acre portion of a 7 acre parcel in District 3.
Motion.
So this application is on Boyd Road. This is a typical rezoning request that we see. Someone is looking to carve out an acre on an existing AGC parcel, and in order to do that, they must rezone to RUD. So that's the case here. They're looking to rezone this eastern corner of the property and build a new home there. Staff recommends approval with a condition. It's mostly consistent with the comp plan and future land use map. While it doesn't have the rural residential designation directly on this parcel, it is directly adjacent, and the plan is not intended to be parcel specific in its land use recommendations, so staff felt comfortable with that. The parcel is not currently used for agricultural purposes, and parcels zoned RUD and of a similar 1 acre size are directly to the west on Jim McCarter Road. By an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission likewise recommends approval with that condition, and it's the standard condition for these rezonings that would create a split zone, so that they have to record a plat that separates the two zoning districts.
So for clarification, the condition is, how would we state the condition in the motion?
You could state the condition as recommended by Staff and Planning Commission, but I can also read it out. The property must be subdivided so that no more than one zoning district is applied to a parcel. An approved subdivision plat encompassing the portion of the property zoned to RUD shall be recorded with the York County Register of Deeds within 90 days of the rezoning approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff before we open it up for public hearing? Okay, is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this rezoning? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion
Motion to approve.
with the condition noted? Mr. Atkins? With the condition? Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to public hearing item number 4, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 23-33, tax map number 36600000013, to rezone from RSF 40 to RSF 30.688 acre portion of a .842 acre parcel in District 2.
Yes, this is a partial lot rezoning. It's a little bit difficult to see on the aerial here, but there is a home underneath the trees there. The applicant owns both the subject property and the immediately adjacent parcel on the east side, and is seeking to do a little bit of a land swap between the two parcels, taking some land from the subject parcel. The remainder would not be sufficient to meet the minimum required in the existing zoning district, so that is the reason for the requested rezoning. Staff recommends approval with a condition. It's consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. This is a town of Clover donut hole, so this is consistent with their future land use map as well. The subject lot already contains a home. The immediately adjacent lot already contains a home, so there's no new construction here. By an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission likewise recommends approval with that same condition, and it's the same condition to record that plat within 90 days of the rezoning approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff?
So we're just basically moving the property line.
I've seen a bunch of these. I mean, is this because of the recode that's requiring this, or are we just detecting these, or?
No, ma'am, this is, the applicant is causing this situation to occur. They've got 2 lots that are complying today, and they are looking to add some property to one lot by taking it from the other, and that makes that other lot non-conforming. So this is an applicant-driven request.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this rezoning? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve with the condition that the property be subdivided so that no more than one zoning district is applied to a parcel. An approved subdivision, am I reading the right thing?
Yep.
Okay. An approved subdivision plat encompassing the portion of the property zoned RSF 30 shall be recorded with the York County Register of Deeds within 90 days of the rezoning approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to item number 5. Rezoning action, hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 23-34, tax map number 65000000057, to rezone from NC to GC, .54 acres in District 1.
Yes, this rezoning application is at the intersection of Gold Hill Road and Highway 160. It's about half an acre. The applicant is seeking to reopen an existing gas station. Gas stations are not permitted in the neighborhood commercial district, but the existing gas station was previously legal nonconforming. That's another phrase for grandfathered. The gas station has been closed for years, estimate around 2016, and therefore it has lost its legal nonconforming status. So in order to reopen as a gas station requires a rezoning to GC. So there is an existing access on Gold Hill Road. I've highlighted that in red there for you. That does not meet current spacing requirements from the intersection with South Carolina 160, and that's really an unsafe situation given its proximity to the 7 lanes there coming from that quadrant of the intersection. And as the district representatives from that area know, that's a very highly trafficked intersection with a lot of difficult movements. So the South Carolina DOT recommended, they cannot require it because it's grandfathered in, but they did recommend that access be removed. And staff had originally drafted a condition for this rezoning that access be closed, but discussing further with the applicant, they had concerns about having the fuel trucks come into the site. So we modified that condition such that we are recommending that it be a right-in from Gold Hill Road only with no exit because it's just too close to that intersection for safety. And PC picked up that recommended condition as well. So to assist them with that situation, there is a new expanded parking lot for the McDonald's that is next door, and they will have interparcel access available there. So there's another point of access going forward. Staff recommends approval with a condition. It's consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. As you can see, this area is designated as community center, and certainly at the intersection, gasoline sales center makes perfect sense. As you can tell from the zoning map on the left there, this is kind of one parcel of neighborhood commercial amongst a sea of general commercial property. So certainly the district makes sense here. By an 8-0 vote, Planning Commission recommends approval with that condition. And the condition is, in order to improve the safety of the intersection, the Gold Hill Road access must be reconfigured to a right-in only with no exit within 180 days of rezoning approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I do. John, so coming from TGK, it would be a right-in coming from TGK and Gold Hill, correct? I just want to make sure I'm looking.
Sorry, I had my mic off. Yeah, it would be a right-in as you're coming east across Gold Hill, yeah.
So tell me though, how this will work with the, with that restriction on there, with the gas trucks coming in? Where are they gonna, how are they gonna be able to access those pumps with
Yeah.
just a right in into this?
Yeah, they would take that right entrance in there. They could also, if they're coming south on 160, they could also turn in from there as well, and that remains available even with the condition.
So so with this plan, they're gonna have to go down to TGK, turn around and come back in order to pull into this thing. There's no gas trucks that are gonna be coming, I mean, normally they're gonna be coming from, the other direction, from the interstate, et cetera, but that right-hand turn in is coming from TGK. I'm just guessing, I wouldn't estimate a fuel truck would naturally be coming from that direction.
So all of the ingress movements coming into the site would be the same as they are now with the condition. There is no change to the ingress points. So you can see, even with this right in only, they're still able to come into that site off of, from Gold Hill. And they are also able to come into the site from 160 as well. There's no restricted entrance points.
But in the section in blue, if I'm coming down Gold Hill Road, I can't take, if I was a truck, I would, well, they're gonna, yeah, it's because you've got the island there too. Okay. I'd like to hear, in the conversations that occurred, was this an agreement arrangement that you came up with where they'd be accessing the McDonald's? I think I heard you mention.
So the McDonald's recently proposed to expand their parking lot. And as part of the approval of that expanded parking lot, they were required to add in an interparcel access. So it was not related to this rezoning request. It just happens to be a new opportunity to have interparcel access.
So they could access this building going through.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's it for questions I have.
Any other questions?
I actually had the same concern that you did, looking at the map. I was actually over there this past weekend. So if a truck did come in off of 160 and pull into the parking lot here to the right of the building, it'd be almost impossible for them to get back out. So they really wouldn't have that way to pull in, I wouldn't think, because they couldn't go out of the right-hand turn only. It's on Gold Hill Road. So I'm asking the same question. A tanker truck coming in, they would have to go by McDonald's and then come up the road behind McDonald's, I guess, and get out on Gold Hill and then take a right into the property.
That could be an alternative, or they could exit and go south on 160 as well.
Unintentional consequence, but you might want to look at how tight that is, the truck going over the curb.
Understood, and I think the applicants have some slides that they'd like to share with you all about the difficulties they might encounter with that. I think our position on it is the safety of the intersection overrides any potential improvements the applicant might have to make to accommodate tanker truck movements on the site and to exit.
I do have one more.
Mr. Audette?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at the design, if they're coming in from the other direction, when that truck is pulling in, if they had an ability to take right-hand turn out back on Gold Hill Road, as opposed to being blocked, I mean, I think you're looking at a potential, I mean, when vehicles are in there to get fuel, just to go into the store, and you've got a tanker truck coming in, I think there's gonna be a logjam. My recommendation would be to open up that right-hand turn back out onto Gold Hill Road. At least they'd have an exit ramp to at least get back onto the road, as opposed to only taking ingress in, allowing the egress at least for those tractor trailers to get back out on Gold Hill.
I understand the point you're trying to make. I think our recommendation is based on safety and SCDOT's recommendation as well. And I just wanted to back up. Their recommendation was to completely close it, so to not allow any traffic in or out coming from Gold Hill based on the proximity to the intersection. As any vehicle that's going to take that right out onto Gold Hill, they are very close to the intersection, and if you've got a tanker truck that's coming out, they're going to block multiple lanes as they're trying to exit, and it won't be but a second before they're at the intersection as they're leaving the site.
Yeah, I'm just concerned what this proposal is going to do, though. It's going to cause greater issues of potential issues down the road here, or trucks trying to turn around in the event of having to leave or entering this. Okay, I'll wait for next comments.
Who owns the parcel behind the store? Is that a separate,
To which are you referring?
the land mass right behind?
That looks vacant in the area? Yeah, that's the McDonald's.
That's where
So
the
that's
McDonald's
where that expanded parking lot is, yes.
Because it just looks like a pretty tight parking lot for a 48-foot fuel truck.
Any idea where the tanks are to refill? Was that,
So I believe, yep, there they are. So the applicants have some exhibits. These came in today, so I'm not going to profess to be an expert on what I'm looking at here, but I assume the applicants will have some commentary for that. And because we just received this today, we're more than happy to continue having a dialogue with the applicant. And if we feel like we would like to modify our recommended condition for future readings, we're more than happy to consider that.
Jonathan, I have a question, I'm sorry. If we go back to the picture of the expanded McDonald's parking, so is there a turn into that from Gold Hill Road can a tanker truck make that right and cut through that parking lot to get to the gas station? Like I'd like to see that picture. So where, maybe for the next meeting, on this picture, where will the turn in, where will the traffic turn in to get to that McDonald's parking? Is it still going to be where it is now on that little cut-through road, or is it going to be off of Gold Hill?
So I don't want to suggest that the intent of the interparcel access is to have dedicated access for tanker trucks to come through. Just merely pointing out that there is an additional opportunity for traffic movements with the new improvement there by the McDonald's. So here in the aerial, that area that it's almost a perfect square that looks green there, it's got a couple trees on it, that is now the parking lot for McDonald's. So you can see just below, that's the existing McDonald's just to the south there. So they have expanded their footprint into that formerly green area so that folks coming in from that access road could turn into that parking lot and then thereon access the other parcel. As we all know, there's synergy between fast food uses and fuel.
Any other questions? We'll open it now for public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan Ballou on behalf of the applicant, 417 Windsor Terrace, Rock Hill. Y'all have identified specifically the concerns we have with the condition proposed by staff. We have provided to staff today some engineered drawings as to ingress and egress. And Councilman Audette, the real safety issue we see is when you get trucks coming in, how do they get out?
How do they get out?
And what you see in this diagram is a truck coming in off from Steel Creek down 160. It comes in the way that staff would contemplate and then goes out, back out Gold Hill Road, or conceivably could turn to go down 160. That's a logical flow of traffic for any vehicle that is servicing this property. And it's not unique to a convenience store, but it is obviously a legacy piece of property. It's been around for years and years. It is suited for a gas station convenience store, and my client has invested substantial amount of money in improving the site specifically for that purpose. This condition, though, goes against the use that staff agrees is proper, that really everyone, I think, is on board that this is what this property, how this property ought to be developed. We also have a diagram that shows if you do not have access out of Gold Hill Road. Jonathan, could you skip to the next? And that shows a truck coming into the site through that 160 access, and then it gets stuck. And if you have a trailer, you're going to be facing a situation where that driver is now going to have to be jockeying this trailer back and forth just to get a line so he can go out the way that staff contemplates would be allowed. We understand that there are safety concerns coming out of TKK, and we're very, very aware of that. In fact, one of the things that we have proposed and we would like for council to consider is we'd be willing to put some timing restrictions. Traffic coming out in the mornings is a bad time. Our deliveries are typically at night. We would be willing to limit, to restrict egress, particularly for trucks, but if you wanted to do it generally, between the hours of 6 and 9 or 6 and 10 or something like that, that allows that traffic to move out of TKK. And then you really don't have many other hours of traffic where you've got a real concern there. Obviously, I mean, it is a close entrance to that intersection. We can't help that. That is a grandfathered entrance. That is something that DOT has, in fact, I think you've got some emails that say, yeah, they would prefer that we move it back. But the lot is limited, the access is where it is, and they have agreed that it is grandfathered where it currently is. Now, as far as the McDonald's property behind us, we have in fact approached McDonald's, and they've refused. They were not willing to entertain any agreements to allow any kind of access. I don't know what kind of inter-property agreement was required when they had got their approvals, but at this point, that's not even an option. And it's cars, it's people going to McDonald's. That's not ideal for having tractor trailers, gas trucks coming through that lot in order to access this site. So we wish that this site were larger or configured differently that would allow for these kinds of issues to be addressed differently, but it is what it is, and that's why we're asking for the rezoning. I don't think there's any question that staff agrees that the rezoning is proper, and they're recommending that. We did not know about this condition until right before the Planning Commission. We're certainly willing to engage in discussions with staff about conditions as to timing of access, if that's something that has some value. But we would simply ask that you approve the rezoning on first reading without the condition.
Thank you, sir.
And I have with me my client and my engineer. If there are specific questions about the site that council may have, I'm so happy to have folks discuss that tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Yeah, motion to approve without the condition. I would like to also add a condition to it stating that the ingress and egress for both Gold Hill and 160 be added in based on the diagram that the customer has sent to York County.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Can we go back?
For purposes, let me just ask, is that motion give enough clarification to understand what council's intent is?
I believe the intent is to leave the access points as is, and if that's the case, you do not need a condition.
I think it's one that
Well,
staff is
I
recommending.
think the condition was,
What staff is
the condition was to use the ingress egress for both, yes, it would be, yeah, it would, well, I mean, based on the diagram that was submitted. So my request would be under the condition is to follow their diagram.
Yes, their diagram is current conditions.
Okay, all right. So then let me modify then. Motion to remove conditions off of this motion, and so it'd be just removing condition, existing condition.
So the motion is to approve without conditions Do you agree with the second? All right.
Yes, it's just,
Okay.
yeah.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Roddy?
Can we pull up the diagram once again? Take a look at, so we all on the same page of what we're approving? Because originally I thought the motion was going to be, state said close it, our staff said leave it open for a write-in only. But now we're back to the one that the client has submitted. No, put the one up with, that they submitted. The latest one that we just got today.
Right there.
So is this it? So we're gonna have a right in, right out onto Gold Hill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why are we're still gonna be limiting when we put this island in the middle for a tanker to get out here.
turn.
Either we're gonna leave it open or we gotta, putting that island in the middle, I think is gonna still limit a truck to make that swoop around.
Which island are we talking about?
We're out of public
one-
comment.
The one coming out on Gold Hill, well, I'll direct this to
Well,
Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan can help.
The island that's out on the exit coming out on Gold Hill, to me, that's right in the path that a tanker would need to get out and make a right-hand turn.
So given that this came in today, I'm not sure if that's meant to be proposed striping, or if it's a true pork chop to restrict movements. I'm not certain of that. It's paint, I'm
Oh, it's
told.
painted, okay. Because one thing we do know for sure, when there was a gas station before, a tanker was getting in and out apparently with no problem. So if we're gonna do anything, we're gonna now be restricting it. So we wanna be careful. But if this is just striping on paint, and he can roll right over it, because typically when I see this, it's like a little island there with maybe the cement, raised cement, but if it's just striping, then yeah. So we're basically leaving the whole exit open, just with striping on the ground.
Any other discussion? Yeah. Did you say yes? Ms. Love?
So this has been an eyesore for so many years. It's so bad. And I understand why it's not something we would want to put on this corner at this time. We've now got four lanes, is it four? Yeah, 4 lanes, 5 lanes right there. And I believe when this was originally closed, that was not the case. So there's a big difference in what this looks like today, what this traffic pattern looks like today versus what this traffic pattern looks like. So I'm going to support it tonight. But one thing that I would like to see is maybe if I like the idea of a timing restriction, if that could be begin at 7 p.m. because that's when traffic lets up right there. Usually that's pretty hectic, pretty busy. I think if I were a tanker, I wouldn't want to be there any time around there. I'd probably show up about 9:45. But the other concern is that somebody that's coming down Gold Hill Road towards Higa Cay, coming down and making a U-turn to come back and to come into this from the right, that's a big concern that I would have here. So I understand that makes that tempting to do when you leave this open. So I understand SCDOT's and the county's concern because if a truck is coming off of 77, they're likely going to be coming down Gold Hill Road towards Higa Cay, and to make a U-turn, a tanker making a U-turn anywhere is a real.
Well, they could,
He'll make that left.
yeah, you can make the
He'll
left.
make that left
out
to
the-
take a right in.
Right.
Take the left here, and then make the right into
Yeah,
the
you-
parking lot.
Yeah, they could make
Yeah,
a
that's the
left
ideal.
there,
Yeah,
Okay.
just turn left.
make a left and then go back out.
Right.
So, Jonathan, are they using the existing building exactly like it is, do you know, or are they going to make some changes to that?
They've had an upfit, so at this point, I think those upfit permits are complete, so they just need the rezoning to occupy the building with the use.
Okay, so nothing's moving on the site? Nothing moving?
Is that accurate?
They're not adding to the building, I wouldn't think.
Okay,
They are not proposing to add to the building, correct?
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just let them make one quick comment, though. This location, I've had many calls on, many calls. And this is a breath of fresh air to have y'all go in there and get this thing fixed, cleaned up, and get this gas station going. People have been asking about it, so I do thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes, Jonathan, the median between the exit and the entrance off of Gold Hill, is that South Carolina DOT approved, the size and the shape of that? Is that what has to be there?
It's just paint.
Or you said that's just paint,
That's
it's
just
not
paint,
concrete,
right.
it's not elevated?
Correct, that's just
No.
paint striping, yeah.
Okay, so that could actually be shorter, that's not an issue. So
Yeah, that's something that we would work through with the site review process.
And then the tractor trailer, is it showing on here, the tractor trailer would come in, the tanker would come in, and then it would circle between the two buildings to exit back out on Gold Hill Road, is that right? Unless it went out on 160?
I don't want to speak too out of turn on this exhibit. We just did receive it today, and we've not had an opportunity to discuss any of the potential movements with the applicant, so I'd like to do that before I comment on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That's just first reading.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to item number 6, council to hold a public hearing, amend and approve third reading of an ordinance to amend the Code of County of York, South Carolina, Chapter 90.02, rates, fees, and charges for public park facilities, services, or sponsorships in order to establish a fee schedule for the Bethel Lake Wiley Land Acquisition and Preservation Park District, to modify the existing fee schedule, including new fees for Field Day Park, to increase the reservation fee for camping and shelter reservations at Ebenezer Park and Allison Creek Park, to establish cross-country course event fees for Catawba Bend Preserve, to establish food truck vendor fees for all parks, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to, we have no old business tonight. We move now to new business. Council to ratify an emergency procurement with State Utility Contractors, Inc. for sewer force main bypass and repair for a total cost of $53,290.
Vote to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to item number 2. Council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend ordinance number 521, adopted January 19, 2021, Bethel Lake Wiley Land Acquisition and Preservation Parks District, by clarifying the process for resolving any disputes that might arise between the district board and the county manager or his designee, by detailing the existing authority of the county manager as designee to call a meeting of the district board, by detailing the existing authority of the county manager or his designee to operate the district as an agency of the county, including but not limited to development of an organizational chart for the administration of the district, along with the determination of any needed personnel and any training and compensation to be provided to personnel, and to provide for other matters relating thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. If I could just ask county manager to just kind of summarize what the purpose of this is, so that everybody's aware and on the same page as to why this is being requested.
Sure, glad to. We have boards that are set up with the county, some advisory and some in a more, I guess, formal role. This was initially set up as where they gave the committee authority to buy and sell property, negotiate for things, and all of that would have been contingent or is contingent upon council approval. So it doesn't give them full authority to do all that sort of thing. And Michael, if I get any of this wrong, you can let me know. But what we are requesting, management is requesting it be set up more like as an advisory committee, similar to the way Field Day Park is set up. And largely allows them to accomplish the same thing, where the board would make recommendations to staff and council on things like master plans or projects for the park district. So we think that's appropriate, just more clearly establishes that this is an agency of the county and under control of county management and county council. Felt like now was the opportune time to do that, as council is going to be appointing several new members, and thought it was good for them to know exactly what their role was going to be as they were appointed.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item number 3, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 154 Land Development Code and Chapter 155 Zoning Code to define the term property violation and to allow for rezonings and other applications to be withheld from processing for subject properties with an active property violation, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think we were going to get just a little bit of information from management on what this is so that council could hear this even though it's first reading. Is it,
Yes,
Jonathan?
and-
I'm looking at both of y'all. Y'all just
Jonathan's
start.
doing such a great job so far tonight. I can continue.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so the proposed ordinance is part of a toolkit of methods to resolve violations of our code of ordinances. So we already have this, but for one type of violation. So if an applicant requests a rezoning of their property from county council, that is prevented from moving forward if they have an active zoning violation on their property. And I think the perfect example for this type of situation is the McAfee rezoning from earlier this year and into parts of last year. That property had a number of violations, including stormwater, illicit discharge, zoning, nuisance violations, and most of those continue on even today. And the only thing that they corrected in order to keep their rezoning application moving through the process was to clear their zoning violation. They had some folks living in structures that were not permitted to be residences. So once that was cleared, they were allowed to move forward. The proposed ordinance would allow staff and the county council to withhold certain permissions that a property owner would seek, whether it's a building permit, a rezoning application, a site plan approval, if there is an existing unresolved property violation.
Any questions?
Yeah, so
Or we're in discussion?
yeah, so a question. So to me, I'm a little concerned about this. And the reason why is that disputes can go on for quite a long time, you know, with some of these property owners. And I feel like it goes both ways. I can see where, you know, we can only work through an issue so fast, but should that be a fault of the landowner to have to sit and wait and not be able to move forward with any of their other requests while they're going through delays that maybe we have to, you know, it's taking us time to go through paperwork. I'm a little concerned just because, I don't know, I guess I know this is just first reading, but I'm expressing some concerns around this. I guess I got to think about it more, but I feel like this might be a little bit of too much of an overreach to a certain extent. So I just want to make those comments.
Sure, and happy to follow up with any specific questions. If you want to give me a call, happy to talk through those. I did want to say that it is a tool in the toolkit. It is not a shall. It is an option. And we do this for any code enforcement case. We work with the property owners as long as they're working towards resolving their cases. We don't escalate enforcement. This would be reserved for cases where we're really not getting any traction from the property owner and they are simultaneously seeking some sort of approval from the county, but they're not willing to resolve property violation with the county ordinances.
Any other discussion? Ms. Roddy?
Since you mentioned the McAfee property, you know, one thing, and we kind of went through that really extensively. In a case where the violations were in place, but had that rezoning went through, that stuff wouldn't have been relevant because, let's say, the lagoons and certain things on that property would have been going away. Obviously, if it was a rezoning and those things were going to remain in place, then I think we should hold up a rezoning until those violations are fixed. But, you know, in a case where whatever's in violation is no longer going to be a part of the new rezoning or the new plan coming forward, of course, staff should I'm sure you guys have the wisdom to see, well, this is gonna go away. We don't need to use to hold up the rezoning if these factors are gonna go away. Sewer versus water sewer, or what was in place, the lagoons and all the open drainage situations, because obviously if someone's gonna bring in water sewer piped in, the lagoons they go away. So why have someone fix lagoons that's gonna go away if the property's gonna be rezoned and that's no longer gonna be a factor? So I just hope staff has the, and I know you guys have the wisdom and fortitude to understand what's gonna remain and what's gonna go away if we rezone a piece of property. So I would be concerned about that.
Yes, sir, you're absolutely correct. Like I said, it would be a tool in the toolbox that we would break glass in case of emergency type of situation, and we've also built language into the ordinance that if the pursuit of an application of some sort, and that includes a rezoning, would resolve the violation, that of course can proceed.
Good.
I had the same question. If you had an issue with septic, but you're bringing water and sewer to the property, if rezoning's approved, that eliminates the issue with the septic. So we're not saying we're going to cause someone to spend money unnecessarily to get to rezoning a property where they ultimately have fixes in place.
Correct.
Anybody else? No? Nope. Well, I'll support first reading on this. I understand it went through the committee. The only thing I will say is, how it's enforced is going to be really critical. And I think there have been some concerns raised lately that we're being too heavy-handed, that we aren't able to kind of be a little bit more flexible on things. And so it does concern me a little bit with this. I'm interested to hear the public hearing and then dig into it a little bit more. Certainly repeat violations or folks who put property in a situation where there's nuisances throughout the county, it's unheard of that they continue to do that. And we get questions from the community on that end too. Why aren't you doing anything to stop this when they're continuing to do these problems? So I understand what we're trying to accomplish. I support first reading. I do think we have to be very careful. Government typically isn't the solution to things. It usually causes more problems. So I just think we need to be very vigilant about that. All those in favor of the motion, first reading, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 4, council to consider first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 154 Land Development Code to reduce the number of tiers of the traffic impact analysis, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Jonathan, can you give us a little bit of information on this one?
Yes, ma'am. So currently, we have 3 tiers for a TIA, that's a traffic impact analysis. The first tier is essentially a worksheet where a traffic engineer will tell us what the use is, their hours of operation, and the trips they are likely to generate. The middle tier is kind of a cursory study of an area. It does cost several $1,000s to perform that. And then the highest tier would be a full TIA study. We call that a tier 2. So the proposal here is to remove that middle tier because, as discussed in the Planning and Zoning Committee and further evaluated by staff, we weren't sure whether there was value in having that middle tier. And after reviewing scores of that middle tier of TIA, we only had 2 projects in its entire history that produced any sort of mitigation. So we were having those applicants that were kind of on the edge of causing traffic issues to do a study, and the study showed that they were not producing traffic issues. So the proposal here is to eliminate that middle tier and reduce that cost of development burden to some of those lower impactful projects.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Our final item, nope, not our final item, we got to add one. Number 5, council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend section 155.1301, definitions in subpart 5.9, sections 155.765 and 155.766 of the zoning code of York County by revising the definition of event venues and making corresponding changes to subpart 5.9 in order to distinguish that existing agricultural farm structures utilized solely in agritourism or rural activities as rural event venues shall be excluded from classification as commercial facilities, that such use shall not constitute a change in use, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Let me start this out by saying it's no secret that I did not support, and I think I was the only one who did not support third reading of an ordinance that's now come into place that is now causing some additional issues. Council reached out to me, and I understood there was a majority that wanted this back on here, so I want, out of transparency, that to be first. This is not me trying to jump back something that I said no to a month and a half ago. I think there are some additional concerns that the majority, I have been assured that the majority of council wanted to have this discussion. So I do want to start us off with that piece before we engage in any discussion, and I'll open it up for discussion. Mr.
I
Roddy?
don't mind starting. This is one of those items that came back to us. I was on the committee, I think it was me, Allison, and Debbie, come through our committee. And obviously, and I've said it many times before, we make changes, and sometimes we don't know how those changes will actually affect the individual, the business. And I always say, we don't bat 1,000. We can always come back and tweak things and make it right if it's not working. And apparently, I received a call late last week about, some people who are into the rural event venues, that things are not going, and they can't get, fully, approval to operate. And then I hear affidavit went out asking them to sign it not to operate, which I don't think that's the right thing to do. So this is all about trying to put them in a situation where they can continue to at least operate while we work on what we need to work on to make it a doable situation for them, as well as what we can stomach with an ordinance. Now, one thing that was thrown out was that could we put them in a situation to operate as they exist now while we work on some things to let them get back in the game of offering their services. I don't have a problem with doing that, supporting it, allowing them to continue to do some type of business. If we have to put a limitation on how many events that they can have over the next 6, 9, 12 months until we're able to come up with a good ordinance and a good fit. But I do have one concern, that if we're going to allow any operations to go on, that we're not allowing people to operate out of compliance with anything that the state may have in place for venues of this sort, state ordinances. So that would be my question to legal. If long as this can clear the legal hurdle, that we're not putting something in place that violates the state ordinance or state laws, then I'm fine with allowing this to go through. So I guess that's a question for us on a legal level.
Be happy to address that in executive session, but for purposes of the title, the title as it of itself is not offensive to state legislation. And once the actual ordinance gets written, we can analyze it in that way. But the intent is to supplement the state legislation, not change it.
Any other discussion?
So I'm comfortable with this in title only. I do think there are some additional things that we're going to have to look at, and I think there are some things that the state may need to look at. One thing that I don't think is in our current ordinance is the term that the state uses, and that is barn structure. And I'd like to see that actually written out in our ordinance. And I promised to send that to Jonathan today, and I failed to do that. So I will send that to you, Jonathan. But before I go to bed tonight, I will send you that, I promise. But so I think that we've had a lot of venues that have been pretty much put out of business. And we want them to be able to operate. If you want to have an event, you want to get married somewhere out in the country at a farm, I think you should be able to do that as a resident. And I think that these people who own these farms and venues should be allowed to let you do that. We certainly don't want to cross any lines with building code, and I think that's some of the things that are going to need to be addressed at the state level. I'm working on that as promised last year also. And I feel like we just need to look at the big picture here, and we've been kind of focused on the small parts of this, the small elements of this. But again, I think title only. We're not done with our work as a council on this. I think the zoning committee is going to need to consider this again, and would like for us to refer this back to the zoning committee if possible tonight, and hold a meeting as soon as possible to discuss this a little further. We do have building code, and we have to interpret that, and we have to insist on that. We can't get by with letting someone to do something that the state has deemed code if it's not safe. But so I'm doing my part. I'm continuing to work on this, and I just think the zoning committee can take the next step with this and bring something back, hopefully quickly by second reading on this to keep these folks in business. And I just want to also add that this is not for every venue in the county. This is for those that are legitimately farms and barns. And a lot of those venues have been built. They're commercial, and they do have to. In my opinion, the building code applies to them 100%. There's no way around that in those cases. So I just think there's might be a fine line, but I do think there's a line of demarcation between those uses.
And,
Mr. Atkins?
well, I'd just like to say, I know a lot of these people, and they feel like their as of right uses and what they should be able to do on their own land has been violated through this. And I don't think we should never deter at least our private citizens from being able to run businesses. We need more of that.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I think that, as we're out there supporting small business and we're out there helping farmers and the businesses that they generate, I think that we've got to be very practical about our approach and how we look at these things. And the fact that this is impacting families, that the money they raise out of this thing is very important to them. And so we've got to make sure that we're looking at both sides of the coin here, but we can do this in a way that it will be a safe event, but at the same time, open it up to whatever agreement we have, that we keep it at a certain number, whatever the agreement ends up being. I think that it's really important that we brought this back, because I think it shows on the county here that we want to make sure that we're hearing the people, and the people that are having these businesses, and anybody that wants to start a small business, we're hearing them, and we're working with them to try to make these things work.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to agree with everything that's been said. The event venue, the Grand Tree ordinance, I've received telephone calls. I've talked to a few of you. You've received telephone calls as well about how it's affected the entities, whether it's the event venues, some are here tonight represented, in the Grand Tree ordinance too. So I would hope that if the committee is going to reevaluate this, that you invite some people in that have called us, so you can hear directly from them how they're being affected by it. Same thing, I know we're not talking about the Grand Tree ordinance, but I'd like to go back and revisit that at some point too, because there are legitimate concerns over that ordinance that we might need to tweak. But I know we're talking about event venues currently.
So the event venue issue has been going on for years. The intent of the ordinance, because I was here when it first came up, and Bump and Allison, I think at least us were here, it was never intended to result in taking a property use. The whole purpose of the ordinance was to bring folks into compliance that have been doing, I think Wendy Hill was the one that brought this to the attention. And so I think the point of that ordinance was never to put folks out of business or to take a use. It was to bring them in together. Even after this event venue ordinance revision was made, there's been a decision from, I realize it was an appeal from a building official, but an existing event venue was given an exemption under the agribusiness exemption under the code that I think is causing some of the most consternation. So I think that what council is asking for, and you guys interject, and I'm giving you the option to tell me no or yes, because I do think this has been going on for a long time. and it stayed in committee for a long time. And I think the request is to try and move forward to get, how do we get staff and legal to get together to come up with a solution that helps us get the folks that have been doing this for 20-plus years, at least at a place where they have consistency while we figure out what's going on, and that's got to be done quickly, or this is just going to carry on again. In order for this to have any benefit, there really needs to be some swift action. So I'm not opposed to it going back to planning and zoning, but I think we need to send it with some direction for management and legal to look at the issue, put it together, and for you guys to take a look at it fairly quickly. This is your committee. Ms. Cloninger, is that something that you think you can get done before our next council meeting? At least have your meeting on that, or how are we just sending it to committee to sit out there? My concern is that what we're trying to do is
Not sending anything to committee to sit out there. We've been
I don't mean
working on
that.
this. We've been working on this for a very long time. I also don't think that what we approved about a month ago was a detriment to these venues. I think we did a good thing, but I think that what's happened is there are more things that maybe were not ever brought up that are now being brought up. So it's like we've gotten across hurdle number one, and then there's another hurdle that we didn't know about. So I think those are the things that I would like to talk about in committee and find out, I want to see the full picture of, I want to see what are the county things that we need to look at and what are the state things that we need to look at. I mean, I do think there's some things that we can't get around that are state. And so I just think the committee is going to be the quickest if we say we're going to do this in a workshop, or we're going to do this in at another council meeting. I don't know when we're going to have that discussion any quicker than we could have a zoning committee meeting.
Mr. Roddy?
I just think some things came up outside of what we had already discussed in our committee. And once we passed it, then now another list of things came into play with some of the event venue owners that we didn't address in our meeting, because at the time we didn't know those were issues. And once they got passed, it's like, from what I'm hearing, these are my own words, staff showed up and said, well, here's some more things that you need to adhere to outside of what we just put in place. So at least give us an opportunity to go back and work on what they've heard from staff on that needs correcting.
Sure. And I think I also heard that the affidavits, there was something that was looked at on requiring folks to sign affidavits, which is uncharacteristic. I think we need to have that looked at as well. And I would just encourage, I was intending no slight here. I'm glad to see that we're still having a discussion on this. My purpose in that was to simply, we've been dealing with it for a long time, is for us to move this as a priority so that we can get some, folks are calling asking questions. Where am I? I'm stuck in this limbo. What am I supposed to do? And out of fairness to that, I think just getting some pencil on the paper would be helpful. And if you're comfortable for it going to your committee, we'll certainly do that.
Yes, and it will be a priority because of the time of the year. We need to get this done for fall events.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, we will do that, and we will consider it referred to. Was there anything else?
We'll just discuss the possible committee meeting dates.
Okay. Good.
We're on it.
All right. Is there anything else?
Well, I'd just like to say a lot of these folks that do this, they actually feel that on one hand, they have no control if you don't ask somebody to come on your property and something happens, they get sued. But on the other hand, if they're assuming the responsibility, which they've already got to, I know we have product liability in anyone coming on the farm. So they're already putting steps in place, to assure, but when are you ever really assured of allowing someone on your property? But they just feel like rights are being took away from them.
Yes, sir. I will also say we allow folks to rent their homes out without getting them up to commercial code, and we don't require that for a certain period of time. Most of these parcels do sit on and are situated not only under the ag exemption, I think would qualify for that, but also are on residential homes, and so you can rent your house out, not your barn. I think those are things I would ask the committee to take a look at. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. we do need to do item number 8 in consent. Council to approve a contract amendment regarding RFQ 2853 for additional professional architectural services with SSOE Group of Columbia, South Carolina for design services at York County's Government Center for a total of $57,000. Do we have a motion?
Motion for management to give an explanation, explain.
Okay, we need a motion on the floor, and then we can ask them that question. We have a motion and a second. All right, we're in discussion.
David, could you explain what I?
Yeah, Tommy asked us earlier today if we could give some explanation. There's, in the building, there were a number of spaces that were just left as shells when this building was constructed, designated for future expansion, and you can see them highlighted there in yellow. We are expanding into some of those areas now with some new offices, and the most efficient way we feel is to go ahead and finish all of those offices. So what we had was an architectural contract for $49,000 previously. We've added a little to the scope. They've added $7,000 to the price, and that's why it's back before council. But it would be for the architectural design of those unfinished portions of all on the third floor, I believe. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct. The larger space you see in front of you, that was previously included in the contract. The additional space up at the top that's highlighted would be part of this modification, and would allow us to expand the usable office space to accommodate other departments on top of what was already approved for the auditor, the county manager, IT services, and Parks and Recreation. This would also allow us to address potential increases in HR and procurement. So.
And even though those properties or those spaces exist as a shell, there's still things that have to be designed regarding how the HVAC flows in there, how the lighting and the electrical is finished. So that's why the architect has to, as well as the interior walls. So that's all part of the contract.
Mr. Atkins.
And I can say, because I had Mike, he took me on a tour of it, and it's just bare.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee and other reports, Economic Development
I think you
Committee.
need a motion to approve that item.
I think we did.
You second a motion to have the manager report.
Motion to approve in order for the purpose of discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Motion.
I think that's what the motion was, for clarification. Is that what you have? Okay, thank you. All right, committee and other reports. Economic Development Committee meeting, Chairman Tom Audette.
Yeah, thank you. So on August 24th, we had a meeting with Councilwoman Love and Councilman Huckabee. I thought it was an excellent meeting. As we've gone through economic development, we've always had opportunities to support our large manufacturing facilities or headquartered accounts with payment fee in lieu. But the challenge that we have in York County is, what do we do for the small business? What do we do for mid-sized businesses in the area? How can we help them? And so I'm excited to make this announcement tonight. Through a unanimous vote, we voted to move forward to go to a full council vote on a partnership that would allow us to offer York County, the entire York County, an opportunity to get, for small businesses to get support, whether it's grant writing, venture capital, mentoring, marketplace, you name it. They're going to have an opportunity to work with a group that would allow them, whether you're a startup or a mid-sized business you want to expand, to help them and to help walk them through the process. What I'm going to be looking for is for us to go to a vote on our next meeting, which would be a partnership with the Gravity Center in Rock Hill Through our economic development funds, we're looking at partnering with them for $100,000 per year for 3 years in a row. That would allow us to have the partnership we need to offer small business entrepreneurs an opportunity to get started and offer other businesses looking to expand a partner in York County. So I want to announce that, and I'm looking forward to next week's vote, or next meeting's vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Finance and Operations, Chairwoman Allison Love.
Finance and Operations Committee met today at 5:40. Present were myself, Councilman Audette, and Councilman Atkins. And we had several applications to approve, make recommendations for, and the first was the recommendation for consideration of the reappointment of Annette Killian for a second term to the Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board. The York County Cultural and Heritage Commission was a recommendation for consideration of the appointment of Jeffrey Lyon for a first term for District 4. And lastly, Keep York County Beautiful, a recommendation for the consideration of the appointment of Joel Finch for a first term, that is an at-large seat. Also considered allocation of funds from District 4 to York County Pearls of Promise in the amount of $1,000. We rescinded a vote from our previous meeting for the allocation of funds from District 3 to the town of McConnells for an EMS station in the amount of $5,000. However, tonight we have reallocated, maybe, the funds from District 3 to the town of McConnells and somewhat earmarked for the volunteer fire department in the amount of $5,000. And we also approved the minutes from the August 21st, 2023 Finance and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. We have some folks that have been sitting here all night long. Fortunately, it hasn't been as long of a night as some of our other meetings have been. But I do want to recognize our citizen concerns and thank you very much for being so patient and for waiting for you to address council. We have Sharonda Love with Divine Fountain of Hope Women's Shelter to address council regarding the organization and the services that are offered. And if you want to just come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so very much for giving us the opportunity to come tonight. I just want to say my name is Sharonda Love, and I'm the Executive Director of Divine Fountain of Hope Women's Center, and we are a 501c nonprofit organization, and we are located in York. We are on 730 U.S. Highway 321, Suite 134 and 140. Our organization exists for young women and young men that are faced with unplanned or unexpected pregnancy. And we offer hope and resources to them. All of our resources are free. We have a self-testing pregnancy test, pregnancy coaching for mothers and fathers, a Earn While You Learn program, parenting classes, and post-abortion recovery for women and men. When the young women and men come into our services, if they are experiencing symptoms of pregnancy, they can do a self-pregnancy test. We're not a medical center at this time, but we do look forward to becoming a medical center that offers ultrasound and prenatal care. With the Earn While You Learn program, young mothers and young men can come into our office and our facility, and they can come and get parenting classes from first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, also how to take care of their child and learn about the resources that we have. We have free diapers, free clothes, free wipes, formula, baby car seats, baby carriers, pack and plays, and cribs. When they come into our office, if they come in, they get to earn $5, which is bucks, mommy or daddy bucks. And when they come in, if they come in with their bag or they do their lesson, and they do it correct and go over. They get to go shopping in our baby boutique. And if they choose, they can also keep those baby bucks to the end, and they can purchase bigger items such as the car seats and the cribs and the things like that. Sometimes young women that come into our center don't know how to take care of a child. Some of them never been pregnant, may not have the support or have any resources. So to be able to offer these free resources to young women and men is a great service for us. When the men come in, we have a fatherhood program, and it helps young men in our community be able to take classes, parenting classes, to learn how to be a better father. And they also can earn these items to take care of their child. If a young woman or a young man have received or had abortion, they can come to our post-abortion recovery classes. Sometimes it may be a very difficult decision for them, and sometimes they may be experiencing grief. Sometimes they may be experiencing overwhelmness from the decision that they made, and we just want to support them. Everything that we do is in support of the young woman and the young man. We want to make sure that the resources that we have, that is offered to them, that they're able to know about those and that they can come in and make an appointment. We are open right now, Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 to 3. Some of the other things that they can learn about in our program that we'll be offering different from other women's centers, we'll be having quarterly, we'll be having classes and workshops where they can learn about breastfeeding, nutrition, and also SIDS. We're also working with doulas to learn about other birthing options for mothers, so they'll have someone that can walk them through the process of their pregnancy and let them know about what it is, the things and the items that they need to prepare before they go to the hospital, how to prepare to pick out an OB or obstetricianist, how to make sure the home is safe and the things that they need to bring their child home. We're working with SCORE right now to try to do more things and learn more of things that we can offer. We're also looking into workshops, working with the Mommies and Me, and it's talking about postpartum depression. That is one of the things that a lot of women are faced with, and we definitely want to be able to have that opportunity to get in that workshop and be able to offer that to our mothers and learn the symptoms and the things that they are going through, and also the resources that they can have, so that if they're experiencing that, we know how to direct them with that. We also have an abstinence program where we go into the schools and talk to our teenagers about abstinence. I think it's a great resource to go into the schools and talk to our young children about self-control, about knowing how to handle themselves when they're being pressured for sex, and knowing how to deal with those things. We've went to Gaffney High School twice. We went in November of last year, and we also was invited back in February, and it was a great opportunity to talk to the youth, and I think it's a very important program to bring to York County. Here in York County hasn't had a pregnancy center, but they have one in Rock Hill, and Cherokee County had seen a lot of women coming from York because they couldn't make an appointment or get in at that center, and we felt the need that it would help significantly here in York County, in York, that women have the opportunity and the resources to come in and get help. I'm pretty sure that you might have seen last year where we had a milk shortage. A lot of women called and contacted a lot of women's center and pregnancy centers for that resource. And I thank God that we're here to be able to offer that resource, to be able to be here and offer different resources to the young women here in York and the surrounding counties as Hickory Grove, Smyrna, and those counties. That's just a little bit about what we do, and I thank you for this opportunity for allowing us to come and talk about some of the resources and the things that we offer at our organization.
Thank you, Ms. Love. We appreciate you coming here to share with us all that Divine Fountain of Hope Women's Center is doing in our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We also have Robert White with NAMI, N-A-M-I, National Alliance on Mental Illness, to address council regarding the organization and the services that are offered.
Thank you. And I am not Robert White, obviously. He is sick today, so he made me come in his place, but I believe he's on the screen if you want to wave to him. So my name is Katie Durkee, and I am, I'm going to read this so I don't go astray here. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for NAMI Piedmont Tri-County, and we cover York County, Lancaster, and Chester. Robert White, our Executive Director, was scheduled to be here, but he is sick, and so he apologizes for not being here. Instead, I'm standing here today as a representative of NAMI Piedmont Tri-County. NAMI is the largest grassroots organization in America dedicated to advocating for mental health awareness, education, and support in our community. And our mission is to ensure that those living with mental health diagnoses, as well as their families, caregivers, and supporters, receive the care and resources that they deserve. So it is an honor to come and speak to you and address our 28th year of serving Chester, Lancaster, and York counties, but my 10th year personally of assisting in this mission statement. And those people at the back as well have been with me that long as well, a bit longer. Last year, with just 5 part-time employees, NAMI Piedmont Tri-County reached over 19,815 individuals across these 3 counties. So slide 2. If you look at slide 2, firstly, we need to understand the urgency of why I'm speaking to you today. I really want to highlight the staggering statistics surrounding mental health. Nationally, 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 youth face mental health challenges, and 1 in 20 people live with a serious mental illness. Post-pandemic, those numbers have grown even more alarming, with 1 in 3 individuals reporting some form of mental health concern. In our community of 294,248 residents, mental health is a grave concern and access to resources is limited, and suicide ranks as the second leading cause of death nationally amongst ages 10 to 34 years old. Slide 3, please. The urgency of our appeal is underscored in part by the increasing suicide rates, which rose by 18% in South Carolina between 2009 and 2018. We knew this was coming because, if you heard previously from Dr. Edwards, in 2019, the Surgeon General declared a state of emergency for youth mental health, and this situation has steadily worsened. While we can contribute some of the spikes to the pandemic, we can see from the graphic that the trend was already heading in the wrong direction. Slide 4. In our other counties, and while we understand budgetary concerns and constraints faced by county councils, we wanted to draw your attention to the financial contributions made by other counties in South Carolina to support community mental health services and clinics. This information is provided only for comparison purposes, but notably on the slide, we are curious about the decline in the funding for Catawba Community Mental Health Center in 2014, as it is they who are tasked with providing critical services to individuals of all ages, but most importantly, crisis intervention and medication management. Slide 5. This highlights the typical duration of stay for somebody with a mental health diagnosis. It's really important to understand that if we're going to start discussing mental health. Typically, we might consider something like a 72-hour stay typical when discussing crisis or inpatient hospital beds for evaluation and planning purposes, just so you know what the baseline is. When we go to slides 6 through 9, I'm going to go to slides 8, 9, and 10. Sorry. When we go to 8, 9, and 10, I want you to notice on those slides, these are from the DHEC licensing database spreadsheet, and they list the availability of psychiatric beds in South Carolina. This helps underscore or highlight the current concerns. Piedmont Medical Center, our primary local healthcare provider, offers just 20 beds for psychiatric patients in this part of the state, and they're only adult beds, not child and adolescent. MUSC's behavioral health program in Lancaster is limited to serving individuals over 50, and Rebound and New Hope treatment centers also listed on these slides. I've highlighted them with the red circles. These facilities primarily focus on inpatient and residential treatment. You can't walk into either of those places if you're having a mental health crisis. We do need to mention Rebound does have a partial hospitalization program, but still the overall capacity and accessibility for people remains woefully inadequate for the numbers that are seeking care. Our plea centers around several critical issues. Mental health numbers in York County, the statistics are painting a dire picture of the need for mental health services within our community, and those numbers are increasing. In regards to the support for Catawba Mental Health Facility and county funding, we would urge you to consider increasing financial support to ensure this facility can grow and meet the growing demand for services that we want to put on them. Available beds and treatment facilities in York County, the limited psychiatric bed capacity is a major concern that needs major attention, although this is not something that we at NAMI have an answer for. Representative Ray Felder has previously floated an idea for a 1-cent tax for health and human services. That might spark further discussion. Again, that is not what we do. What we do is advocate, educate, and support the people who live with mental illness. We just want to know where the resources are going to be in the future. The approximate daily need, the demand for mental health service far exceeds our current capacity, with anecdotal numbers suggesting in excess of 600 individuals finding care in one North Carolina hospital. There's 5 hospitals in North Carolina. One of them reported that they were seeing over 600 people, split pretty evenly between youth, adolescent, and adults from South Carolina. And over 100 more, almost double that now from what we can gather, have been walking into Piedmont Medical Center on a weekly basis. I've included additional information in your folders for that. We desperately need enhanced ability to resources, including support for mobile crisis teams, inpatient facilities, and step-down programs in York County. Your support in addressing these issues is not only an investment in the well-being of our community, but also a testament to your commitment to the well-being of all residents. We implore you to thoughtfully consider the gravity of this situation and work with the community leaders to provide necessary financial support that will bridge the gaps in our mental health care system. NAMI hopes to continue to find funding for our work supporting individuals and families to bridge the gaps in the support for the community. Together we can make a profound difference in the lives of those affected by mental illness. Thank you for your time and consideration. Did I do it on time?
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for sharing with us all the good work that NAMI does. We've had 2 really good organizations that do real strong work in our community, and we appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
We move now to council member new non-agenda comments. Do we have any?
Me?
Mr. Atkins. Jumped ahead of you, Mr. Roddy.
You want to go first?
No, absolutely not.
All right, this coming weekend is going to be the Fall Livestock Show, and it's going to be held the 8th and the 9th at Stony Ridge Farm, located at 700 Triple Creek Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. The pullet show will be, and if y'all don't know what pullets are, that's chickens. And the dairy cow show will be on Friday, September 8th at 5 p.m., and the beef cow and meat goat show will be on Saturday at 9 at 10 a.m., and horse show will be at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. But what I want a lot of you to know, which I grew up doing this, and then my kids did, and I was one of the first ones in York County that actually showed cows. And we had fat stock show back then. Remember the old fairground we had in Rock Hill? And it's not just games and showing. They work hard, they can win scholarships and all kinds of stuff, and it's just fun to watch them raise them from calves and chicks, and then they show people what they can do with them.
Thank you, sir.
So I urge everybody to come.
Ms. Cloninger?
Okay, before the folks from NAMI leave, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming, and I did want to bring up something that probably you didn't have time to bring up, and that is the walk that is going to be on October the 7th. There's information in your folder about that, and I think the Simrals are chair of that particular event. You can see on this, one thing I wanted to bring out are the board members. You will see a lot of friends and very, very well-known names in the community that support NAMI. And like I say, the community walk chairs are the Simrals. So this organization is really worth taking a look at second, third, and fourth time. Thank you.
We're going down the line.
Yeah, first though, I'd like to say the presentation from NAMI was excellent. There's a lot of work to be done in York County, so thank you for presenting that. I thought that was fantastic. Thank you. The other thing I want to mention, there is a 5K for Fostering the Family race coming up here. It's actually at Allison Creek Park, October 28th. It's a 5K fundraiser. And it's a great event, and it's basically fostering for the family. If you look it up online, 5K event, and it supports foster care, et cetera, in York County. So I want to share that with y'all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Roddy?
Well, y'all just gave me an extended period of time to make 40 more notes, so I'm going to be a while. First, I want to say thank you to the ladies from Divine Fountain of Hope Women's Center. They invited me out to their grand opening a couple of weeks ago, and it was phenomenal. And I did take the pleasure of saying, hey, contact Karen to see if you guys can get on the agenda, because we know people watch online, they go back and watch later. And hopefully the city of York and surrounding areas will realize what such a resource that we have now in York County, and those people don't have to keep making appointments outside of York County to get the services that they need. So thank you, ladies, for bringing this home to us, and hopefully it's a service that people utilize and not go unnoticed. And to the mental health, NAMI, maybe we can see if we can get some of their upcoming event on our website to get people to support their activities as well. Looking forward to getting back to the committee with the event venues, and also we've had some people contact us about reworking the tattoo establishment ordinance that we put together, that we thought we were doing, getting this thing moving in the right direction, but we've hit a few more stumbling blocks of how we're calculating distance or the starting point, ending point. So we're going to bring that back to the workshop also. I've already spoken with Jonathan. He has some ideas of how we can incorporate or tweak some language that allows it to actually happen, because one thing we don't want to do is say we allow tattoo establishments but then have the language in such a way that nobody can open one up. I think that wouldn't be the right thing to do, and I didn't sign off on it to be in that state of limbo of having it approved, but no one can actually open up one. So we're going to work on that language to make sure, because we've had a couple locations that we thought would have been approved, but they weren't based on how the ordinance is written. So we're going to go back and revisit that. And also look forward to hearing more about what Tom's going to bring to us from, was it the Gravity Center?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was at the mixer, or whatever you want to call it, last week. Heard a little bit about it, but you know, I want to hear more about it before we commit another $300,000 to anybody, because we just had a group come get $300,000, the Chamber of Commerce, and we don't want to just have lines out the door coming to get $300,000 every year. So we're going to be real strategic on who gets in that line and what we can do for them. But we try to do, and this has come up several years ago, but how do we get back to supporting our small businesses in the area? Because everybody comes in, they can get the FELO, they can get all the SSRCs and credits that way, but what are we doing for our local individual, going out on faith, sometimes a limp and a prayer to start a business? And we want to make sure we have some kind of resources that, you know, our locals can tap into. So if someone starts a business, we want them to stay in business, because you know, that's how you can't have a major company until you have a small company. You know, and somebody started in the garage, and now they're worldwide. So we want to help those garage starters, those business incubators to go from one spot to another, and, you know, and make it big around here in York County. So, and this Sunday, well, Thursday night is the open NFL season. Y'all all know I'm a big football fan, and I'm still a homegrown Panther fan, despite some things that have happened. But root for our hometown Panthers coming up on Sunday as they travel down to Atlanta. So that's all I have.
Anyone else?
Do you need consensus to refer the tattoo parlor conversation to a workshop?
I think I've already gotten, well, I was going to ask that question when I got time for me, but I'll go ahead and do it now. Is that something, Mr. Roddy, that you think we need to refer to planning and zoning? I mean, the issue of that you raised is with the tattoo parlors is something that's new to me. I didn't realize that there was still an issue. So from what I understand, there's maybe a policy consideration or an ordinance revision. It's up. I'm fine with referring it to committee since you're on that committee, or our workshop is tapped out with.
Well, I don't want a workshop.
I heard you say that, so I didn't know if that's what you intended.
It would require a text change to the code. It's not a policy. It would be an ordinance change.
Okay, I think then we'll refer it to the planning and zoning, and tack that on with you guys.
We'll take it.
All right. Anyone else? Any non-agenda comments? I do think that with the Gravity Center, that's going to be coming before council. We'll get some feedback. That information's coming at the next council meeting, I believe.
Yes.
David, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to say thank you to council for taking the issue back up, and without me having to do it on the event center. I really think we're trying really hard. We talk about trying to help small businesses or trying to help just our folks that have been here, and I think if we can find a way to tackle this, I think it would be a really good move. How do we get to a place where we're helping solve issues and try to do it in a way that makes sense? And certainly we have things we have to navigate over, but I'm thankful that you guys are going to tackle that again, and maybe we'll see some additional help there. We do have a motion. Do we have a motion for executive session?
Yeah, we have 4 items for executive session. Receipt of legal advice, consideration of settlement agreement for project US 21 Force Main Replacement Project number 19301, track number 31. We also have a receipt of a legal advice, County Water and Sewer Regulation Act application. We also have a personnel matter, county manager, attorney, and clerk to council. And lastly, we have a contractual matter, county manager.
Mr. Audette, my apologies. If you could also, there's a brief litigation update to add to that, please.
Okay, we also have a brief litigation matter to speak of.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Wasn't there something that we added during our discussion that you said you would update us on? I don't remember what that was.
Which discussion?
Something that was tonight that you said on the event venues. Michael, you said you could update us in executive session on that.
We could do receive legal advice on event venues would be fine as well.
Legal advice on event menus also.
Is that something we're going to take action on, or y'all want to do that in your zoning, in Debbie's zoning?
Somebody asked a question.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move straight into executive session. We might get out of here.
(9301), track 31, as discussed in executive session.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.